In the original timeline, Petunia Evans' hatred of magic stems from a single devastating rejection, Dumbledore's letter telling her she was mundane. But what if the owl did come for her? Today we explore a timeline where Petunia wasn't just a witch, she was a Muggle-born dropped directly into the snake pit of Slytherin House. The divergence of this timeline begins in the summer of 1969. An emerald-inked envelope arrives at the Evans household, addressed not to Lily, but to the 11-year-old Petunia. For Petunia, this letter is the ultimate validation. She has always craved status, always wanted to be elevated above her ordinary working-class town. Magic is her ticket out. When she leaves for King's Cross, she leaves behind a 9-year-old Lily, who is forced to watch her older sister step into a world of wonder without her. But Hogwarts in 1969 is not a fairy tale for a Muggle-born. When Petunia sits on the stool, the Sorting Hat looks into her mind. It sees her desperate ambition to climb the social ladder, her resourcefulness, and her deep desire to prove she is better than her origins. The hat barely touches her head before decisively declaring her a Slytherin. Petunia thinks she has won, but she has just been dropped into the snake pit at the absolute worst time in history. The First Wizarding War is brewing, and the Slytherin common room is dominated by pure-blood elitists and future Death Eaters. Petunia is a Muggle-born, making her an immediate structural target. Worst yet, she quickly discovers a crushing reality. She is not naturally gifted. While other students make their wands spark effortlessly, Petunia's magic is stubborn, rigid, and demands agonizing, grueling repetition. She survives her first 2 years by making herself small, cold, and utterly invisible. But the dungeons don't break her entirely, because every summer she returns to Cokeworth. It is here that we see the sisters are still close. Combining Lily's raw, accidental magic with Petunia's careful, methodical focus, the girls invent a secret game. They enchant a single closed flower bud. Whenever they whisper a secret into the petals, the flower vanishes, instantly reappearing in the other sister's hand, blooming open to reveal the message. It is their ultimate symbol of trust, a quiet rebellion against the dark reality of Petunia's new world. During these summers, Petunia also seeks out the only other person who understands her, a strange, brilliant neighbourhood boy named Severus Snape, who hasn't even started Hogwarts yet. But the true psychological fracture, the event that defines this entire timeline, doesn't happen until Petunia's 3rd year. It is September 1971, the doors to the Great Hall open, and 11-year-old Lily Evans walks in. Lily is sorted into Gryffindor, and within her first week, the tragedy locks into place. Lily is an absolute prodigy. Charms come to her like breathing. The professors adore her. Horace Slughorn invites her into his inner circle. Petunia, a 3rd year, who has bled for every single inch of magical progress she has made, is forced to watch her younger sister effortlessly conquer the world that Petunia has to fight just to survive in. Petunia is no longer the special older sister. She has been entirely, permanently eclipsed. As Lily thrives in the sunlight, surrounded by friends, Petunia retreats entirely into the dark. And that enchanted flower they used to share slowly stops appearing. To survive in Slytherin as a Muggle-born during the rise of Voldemort, Petunia has to fundamentally alter her relationship with magic. Petunia's wand work lacks fluidity, so she stops trying to cast beautiful, elegant charms. Instead, she leans into the 2 branches of magic that reward rigid discipline and strict rule-following over innate talent: potions and warding. She spends her nights in the darkest corners of the library, learning how to lay invisible traps, brew localized poisons, and cast heavy, blunt-force defensive shields. She doesn't duel her pure-blood bullies. She ensures that if they touch her belongings, their hands break out in agonizing boils. She becomes untouchable not through power, but through paranoia. September 1971 is also the year Severus Snape is sorted into Slytherin. Snape is brilliant, but he is a poor, awkward half-blood. The aristocratic purebloods in the house immediately circle him like sharks. But Petunia intervenes. She steps in front of the first-year Snape and fires a silent, vicious hex at a 7th-year bully, sending him writhing to the stone floor. This forms an alliance. A deeply codependent, fiercely protective friendship is born in the dungeons. Petunia uses her seniority and her brutal defensive magic to act as a physical shield for Snape within the common room. In return, the genius Snape tutors Petunia, secretly teaching her the dark arts and inventing new dangerous spells with her. But as they grow older, the external threats shift. The danger is no longer just the Slytherin purebloods. It is a group of arrogant, popular Gryffindors who call themselves the Marauders. James Potter and Sirius Black despise Severus Snape, relentlessly bullying him for his dark fascination and his introverted personality. But in this timeline, they can't just corner Snape in the halls, because Petunia is always there. For James Potter, Petunia is a massive, frustrating obstacle. He is desperately in love with the brilliant, beautiful Lily Evans, but Lily's older sister is a dark, hostile Slytherin who actively defends the school outcast. The dynamic is incredibly toxic. James mocks Petunia's rigid, ungraceful magic and her association with the snakes. Petunia despises James for his immense, unearned privilege and his cruelty. And caught in the exact middle is Lily. Lily tries to bridge the gap. She tries to defend James to Petunia, and she tries to get Petunia to leave the Slytherin dungeons and sit by the lake in the sunlight. But Petunia looks at her sister surrounded by friends, effortlessly gifted and willfully blind to James Potter's cruelty, and feels nothing but a cold, suffocating resentment. Lily gets to live in a fairy tale. Petunia has to live in a war zone. This pressure cooker builds for years. The love between the sisters is stretched so incredibly thin, holding on by a single fraying thread. And on a sunny afternoon at the end of Petunia's 7th year, that thread finally snaps. It is June 1976. The 5th year students have just finished their Defense Against the Dark Arts OWL exam. It is a warm, beautiful afternoon by the Black Lake. James Potter and Sirius Black are bored, arrogant, and flush with the adrenaline of finishing their tests. They spot Severus Snape sitting alone on the grass. In an unprovoked display of cruelty, James disarms Snape, flips him upside down, and publicly humiliates him in front of half the school. But James makes a fatal miscalculation. He forgot that Petunia Evans, now a hardened, cynical 7th year, is studying under the shade of a nearby oak tree. Petunia doesn't shout to get a teacher. She doesn't cast a standard disarming charm. She reacts with a brutal, localized dark curse she and Snape spent months secretly perfecting in the dungeons. She grips her wand with white knuckles, slashes the air like a knife, and fires a vicious severing hex directly at James Potter's chest. The spell hits with kinetic force. James is thrown backward, his robes tearing open as a deep bleeding gash appears across his collarbone. The laughter around the lake instantly dies. Sirius Black draws his wand, but Petunia is already moving, her wand tracking him with the cold, dead-eyed focus of a cornered animal. In the brutal environment of the 1970s Hogwarts, with a war brewing outside the walls, teachers often turn a blind eye to the schoolyard violence. Petunia knows a sever hex in retaliation to an unprovoked attack will earn her massive point deduction and months of detention, but it won't get her expelled. It is a calculated strike. That is when Lily sprints through the crowd. Lily forces herself between James and her sister. She screams at James to back off, but when she turns to Petunia, she isn't relieved or proud. She is absolutely horrified. She looks at the dark, bleeding curse Petunia just used, and then looks at the aspiring Death Eaters standing just a few yards behind Petunia, watching the violence with cruel amusement. In front of the entire courtyard, Lily scolds her older sister. She demands to know why Petunia is using dark magic. She calls Petunia's friends bigots and monsters. She tells Petunia that she is becoming exactly the kind of hateful witch that the Gryffindors claim Slytherins are. Snape, bleeding and humiliated on the grass, watches the girl he loves furiously defend her arrogant boyfriend, while screaming at the only person who actually stepped in to save him. The humiliation and perceived betrayal boil over. Snape snaps, yelling out the worst, most vile insult he can think of, calling Lily a filthy mudblood in front of the entire courtyard. The slur drops like a bomb. The courtyard goes completely silent. Lily freezes. She looks at Snape, tears welling in her eyes, and then looks to her older sister, expecting Petunia to draw her wand and defend her. But Petunia doesn't move. For Petunia, the hypocrisy is staggering. Lily gets to be the golden child. Lily gets to date the wealthy, popular boy who just attacked someone for absolutely no reason. And yet Lily has the audacity to stand in the sunlight, willfully blind to her Gryffindor privilege, and lecture her about morality. Petunia looks at Lily's tear-streaked face, lowers her wand, and delivers the final fatal blow. Petunia's voice turns ice cold as she agrees with Snape. She bitterly tears into Lily's perceived perfection, telling her that her effortless magic doesn't make her a good person. She accuses Lily of playing princess in her Gryffindor tower, willfully ignorant of what it takes to survive down in the dark. She delivers the final fatal blow by declaring that Lily is not better than her, only luckier, and that they are no longer sisters. Petunia turns her back and walks toward the castle, pulling Snape up from the grass and taking him with her. Lily is left standing alone by the lake. This moment by the lake shatters the Evans family forever. But I want to pass the question to you. Who do you think was actually in the right here? Was Petunia justified in defending herself and Snape? Or was Lily right to call out her use of dark magic? Let me know your side in the comments. Let's get back to the timeline. When Petunia Evans graduates from Hogwarts in the summer of 1976, she looks at the Wizarding World and sees nothing but a death trap. The First Wizarding War is rapidly escalating. Her former Slytherin housemates are taking the Dark Mark, and as a Muggle-born, she is squarely on their hunting list. Meanwhile, her sister Lily has joined Dumbledore's Order of the Phoenix, fighting on the front lines. Petunia applies the cold, calculating survival logic she learned in the dungeons. She completely drops off the grid. She doesn't fight, and she doesn't hide in the magical world. She retreats entirely into the Muggle world. She locks her wand in a heavy iron box under the floorboards of a small apartment and gets a mundane office job. It is here she meets Vernon Dursley. To Lily, Vernon would seem horribly boring, narrow-minded and loud. But to Petunia, Vernon is a sanctuary. He is fiercely ordinary. He has absolutely no connection to Death Eaters, prophecies, or blood purity. When Petunia finally breaks down and confesses her magical nature to him, Vernon doesn't react with wonder. He reacts with fear and protective denial. They make a silent pact. The magic goes in a box, and they will build a perfectly normal, impenetrable life together. They buy a house at number 4 Privet Drive. They get married. Lily is not invited, just as Petunia does not attend Lily and James's wedding. In 1980, Petunia gives birth to a massive, healthy baby boy named Dudley. For the first time in her life, Petunia feels like she has won. She has a family that doesn't compare her to anyone else. But the paranoia of the Slytherin dungeons never truly leaves her. While Vernon sleeps, Petunia secretly traces ancient, wandless warding runes into the wood of Dudley's crib. She is building a fortress in the suburbs. But you cannot outrun a magical war forever. By 1981, the Wizarding world is drowning in fear. Petunia reads the Muggle news, recognizing the gas explosions and bridge collapses for what they really are. She knows her old friend, Severus Snape, has joined Voldemort. She knows Lily has gone into hiding. Petunia fortifies the wards around Privet Drive, determined to keep her husband and son out of the crossfire. Then comes the night of October 30th. A violent crack of apparition shatters the quiet of Privet Drive. Frantic, heavy pounding echoes on the front door. Vernon grabs a cricket bat, but Petunia knows better. She rips up the floorboards, grabs her wand, and opens the door. Standing on her pristine welcome mat is Severus Snape. He is drenched in rain, trembling, and looking more terrified than he ever did as a bullied teenager by the Black Lake. Snape collapses into the hallway and delivers the crushing news. The Dark Lord is narrowing in on the Potters. Snape doesn't know exactly when the attack will happen, but he knows Voldemort is getting dangerously close. Snape looks at Petunia, his oldest ally, with tears in his eyes. He explains that he went to the Dark Lord and begged him to spare Lily's life. Voldemort agreed. He only wants the boy. With a breaking face, Snape warns her that the Dark Lord's mercy is a lie. He confesses his deep distrust of the Potters' friends and the Fidelius charm hiding them, terrified that if the secret breaks, Lily will be utterly defenseless. Because of the Fidelius charm, Petunia is locked out. She has no way to find her sister. But an act of absolute desperation, Petunia drops to the torn floorboards and opens her heavy iron box. She pulls out a fragile dried flower bud, the childhood magic they haven't used in over a decade. Petunia holds the delicate bud to her lips and whispers a frantic plea, warning her sister that they are being hunted and begging to be let in to build the wards. The flower vanishes from her hand. The hallway goes dead silent. Agonizing seconds pass. Then, with a soft rustle of petals, the flower reappears in her palm. It blooms open, revealing a tiny scrap of parchment with an address hastily scribbled on it. The secret has been shared. The Fidelius charm lifts for Petunia. Snape grabs Petunia's hands, begging her to use her defensive shields. He tells her she is the only one who can hold a door against the Dark Lord, pleading with her to save Lily. Petunia looks up the stairs. She sees Vernon holding baby Dudley, staring down at her in absolute horror, begging her silently not to go back into the world that hurt her. Petunia has spent 6 years building a life to escape the shadow of Lily Evans, but in this moment, all the bitterness and jealousy evaporate. She realises that if Dumbledore's protections fail, she is the only wall left between her sister and the Dark Lord. She looks at Vernon, whispers a tearful goodbye, and disapparates into the storm. Petunia materialises on the quiet street in Godric's Hollow. She sprints to the cottage and pounds on the front door. The door opens to reveal James Potter, his wand drawn. Lily steps into the hallway behind him. When she sees Petunia, the sister she hasn't spoke to since that afternoon by the Black Lake, standing on her porch, the shock completely freezes her. There is no time for apologies. There is no time to unpack 6 years of bitter silence. Petunia pushes past James, her wand already drawn. She spends the next 24 hours in a state of absolute paranoia. While James and Lily watch in stunned silence, Petunia systematically tears through the cottage, carving heavy industrial Slytherin runes into the floorboards, poisoning the window latches and weaving localized magical iron into the walls of the nursery. At 3 a.m, an exhausted Petunia is tracing runes into the nursery floor. Lily silently walks in and hands her a cup of tea. No apologies are spoken. They don't need to be. Lily simply looks at the bleeding calluses on Petunia's hands and realises her sister came back for her. Then comes the evening of October 31st. The three of them are standing in the hallway when the air pressure in the street suddenly drops. The magical atmosphere suffocates. The invisible dome of the Fidelius charm visibly shatters like glass around the property. The secret keeper has betrayed them. The Dark Lord has arrived. James Potter doesn't hesitate. He acts with the exact Gryffindor bravery that Petunia always resented. But in this moment, it buys them their lives. James shoves Petunia and Lily toward the staircase, frantically ordering them to take Harry and run while he stays behind to hold the Dark Lord off. Petunia grabs Lily's arm and they sprint up the stairs towards the nursery. They are only halfway up when the front door is violently blown off its hinges. Petunia looks back just in time to see a flash of blinding green light illuminate the hallway. James Potter is struck down instantly. They burst into the nursery. Lily backs against the crib, clutching baby Harry, paralysed by the loss of her husband. Petunia spins around and slams the nursery door shut. She seals the locks and activates the heavy defensive runes she spent the last 24 hours carving into the wood. Heavy footsteps echo on the stairs. Voldemort blasts the nursery door, but Petunia's wards hold for a crucial, agonising 10 seconds. The wood splinters, the runes burn out, and the door finally shatters inward. Voldemort steps into the room. He raises his yew wand, but as he looks at the two witches standing between him and the crib, he pauses. His voice cutting through the ringing silence, Voldemort softly hisses that Severus begged for both of their lives. Feigning mercy, he offers them a choice. If they simply stand aside and surrender the boy, they can both walk out of the house untouched. Voldemort lowers his wand just a fraction, offering a sickeningly calm smile. Lily is paralysed, sobbing, her arms stretched out to shield the crib, but Voldemort's red eyes drift past Lily and lock entirely onto Petunia. Shifting his lethal, quiet focus to Petunia, Voldemort uses the intelligence Snape gave him for cruel manipulation. He reminds her of her own baby boy, hidden away in a Muggle suburb, softly threatening what a tragedy it would be for Dudley to grow up without a mother, especially if she throws her life away for a sister who abandoned her years ago. Petunia is offered a concrete, guaranteed choice to walk away, and Voldemort has given her every logical, selfish reason to take it. In that fraction of a second, her mind flashes to Privet Drive. She sees Vernon holding baby Dudley. Her heart shatters. She knows with absolute certainty that if she stays in this room, Dudley will be an orphan. She looks over her shoulder at Lily. She sees the golden Gryffindor girl, the sister she resented for a decade, utterly broken and terrified. Voldemort thinks Petunia's Slytherin survival instinct will win. He thinks her resentment will win, but Voldemort does not understand love. and he severely underestimates the fierce protective nature of a mother. Petunia realizes she cannot let her nephew become the very thing Voldemort is threatening to make her own son. Down in the dark of the dungeons, Petunia learned how to be a shield, and a shield does not step aside. Petunia steps fully in front of Lily, covering her sister with her own body. Tears streak her face as she accepts the cost of what she is about to do. She raises her chin, grips her wand, and delivers her final words to the Dark Lord. No. Voldemort's fake mercy vanishes in a sneer of disgust. The green light of the killing curse erupts from his wand, illuminating the nursery in a sickening emerald flash. Petunia is thrown backwards, hitting the floor dead before she even registers the pain. But the ancient parameters of magic have been met. Voldemort steps over Petunia's body, points his wand at Lily and baby Harry, and speaks the incantation again. Avada Kedavra. The curse collides with an invisible, impenetrable wall of ancient magic, the blood protection of an older sister. The spell violently rebounds. Voldemort screams as his physical body is ripped apart, leaving nothing but a smoking robe and a collapsed roof. It is the summer of 1988. 7 years have passed since the night the door shattered in Godric's Hollow. Lily Potter stands by the kitchen window, smiling as she watches her 7-year-old son, Harry, run across the grass. The sound of tyres on gravel breaks the quiet evening. A perfectly sensible, polished Muggle car pulls into the driveway. Vernon Dursley steps out. He looks older, carrying the heavy, quiet grief of a widower, but the purple-faced rage of his canonical counterpart is entirely absent. In the original timeline, Vernon Dursley despised magic, but in this universe, Vernon knows that magic is the reason his family survived. He walks to the passenger side and opens the door, helping his own 7-year-old son, Dudley, out of the car. Lily steps out onto the porch to greet him. There is a profound, unspoken respect between the Gryffindor widow and the Muggle widower. They are two single parents forever bound by the Slytherin sister who refuse to step aside. Dudley spots Harry and immediately sprints across the lawn, tackling his cousin into the grass with a booming laugh. They aren't a bully and a victim in this timeline. They are completely inseparable. They are brothers in every way that matters. As Lily and Vernon watch from the porch, the boys begin chasing fireflies as the sun dips below the horizon. Harry laughs, and his innate childhood magic reacts. The fireflies around them suddenly glow a brilliant, blinding gold, swirling around the boys in a miniature, joyful cyclone. Dudley doesn't look at the golden magic with fear, and he doesn't look at Harry with the bitter jealousy his mother once carried. He just smiles, reaches his hand up towards the glowing insects, and lets out a joyful shout. In response, the earth beneath them ripples. A sudden, impossible patch of silver-green flowers burst from the soil, blooming instantly in a protective ring around the two boys. Vernon gasps softly, his hand tightening on the porch rail. But he doesn't shout, he doesn't pull his son away. He just smiles at the last gift his wife left behind. Lily's breath catches in her throat as tears immediately blur her vision. Dudley Dursley is a wizard, but this time the story will be different. There will be no twin letters causing a rift. There will be no shadows, no dungeons, and no years of bitter silence. Lily walks down the wooden steps, kneels in the grass, and pulls both boys into a fierce, massive embrace. She looks down at the silver-green flowers, the exact colours of Slytherin House, and knows that her sister is still watching over them. Petunia Evans died to protect her family, but in doing so, she finally, permanently, broke the cycle of hatred. And that is the story of Petunia Evans. She was never the golden child, and she was never a prodigy. But in a timeline defined by war, she proved that the heart of a Slytherin is forged in the fires of protection. By choosing to stand her ground, she redefined her legacy. She wasn't just a survivor of the dungeons, but the sister and auntie who saved her family. She used the dark magic and rigid discipline of Slytherin to build an unbreakable shield, ensuring that while she could not stay, the love of a sister and a sacrifice of an aunt would light the way for the next generation. If you enjoyed this alternate timeline, please leave a like on the video. It tells the YouTube algorithm that the magic is still alive. If you want to see more deep dives and what-if scenarios in the wizarding world, make sure to hit that subscribe button. What do you think would happen next in a timeline where Harry and Dudley grow up as magical brothers? Drop your best theories in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.